Welcome back to the Universalis podcast. I am Martin Kochański, the creator of Universalis, and in this episode I'll be looking at the highlights of the week ahead, starting with Sunday the 23rd of November. This week the Sunday itself is special because it is the solemnity of our Lord Jesus Christ, King of the universe. We should pay a special attention to the feast this year because this year is its 100th birthday. It was instituted by Pope Pius XI in December 1925 as his final public act of the Holy Year. He celebrated the feast that year on the 31st of December, the final day of the year. Nowadays it is celebrated on the final Sunday in Ordinary Time, as the old liturgical year is ending and just before Advent Sunday brings in the new one. I say celebrate, but I must say that it seems to me that we don't celebrate Christ the King that much. It is one of those things that sit in the calendar and we do them because they are in there without really knowing why. The feast's position in the final week of Ordinary Time gives it an end-of-the-world flavour, and even the Catechism doesn't make much more of it than that. But is the end of the world what it is all about? If you present the kingship of Christ as yet another of those things that happen at the end of the world, along with the Last Judgment, the resurrection of the dead, and all that, then you have kicked it out of this world into the next, which is to say that you have effectively swept it under the carpet, because no one really likes talking about the next world anymore. It makes us sound different from other people, and sounding just like everyone else is something that all English Catholics are desperate to do. They have spent centuries of being persecuted or marginalized for having beliefs different from other people's beliefs, or to be brutally precise, this being England, for having beliefs at all. Having beliefs is un-English, and believing in the next world still more so. But that is only a detour, really, because the point about the kingship of Christ is that it is not only about the next world. Christ is king in this world as well as the next. Kingship has to do not only with eternity, but with time as well, and within time it has to do with every time and every place. This matters because you are a king like Christ. You are in this world in the here and now, so you are a king in this world here and now. Celebrating Christ's kingship means celebrating yours. Understanding Christ's kingship means understanding yours. And once you understand it, you are in a position to be a king, properly, on the model of Christ. The theology of this is not in the least complicated. It's neglected, that's all. It starts with our baptism. First part. You are a priest. At your baptism, the priest anointed you on the top of your head with the oil of chrism, saying, "As Christ was anointed priest, so may you live always as a member of his body, sharing everlasting life." This is the universal priesthood of the laity. Theologians talk quite a lot about it nowadays. What is a priest? Someone who makes a connection between God and people. Whoever we are, we do this in ways depending on the situation. The ministerial priesthood do it one way, the rest of us in other ways. But basically, whenever someone is conscious of a need for God, we open ourselves to that person to be a channel through which that need can be fulfilled. It can happen at any time, so to be good priests we need to be ready for it, and a lot of what we do in prayer and study is done to make us ready. God will help when the moment comes, but we ought to do our part too. Second part. You are a prophet. When the priest anointed you with that chrism, he actually said, "As Christ was anointed priest and prophet." What is a prophet? Someone who talks about the things of God at the times when these things need to be talked about, and to the people who need to hear about them. Sometimes these are people who want to hear about them, sometimes they don't want to, but they need to. We are all anointed prophets, and we should be there for them. To be good prophets, we need knowledge to talk accurately and well, and prudence and wisdom to know when and how to do the talking. Third part. You are a king. The full, exact, and complete words of what the priest said when he anointed you are these: As Christ was anointed priest, prophet, and king, so may you live always as a member of his body, sharing everlasting life. There is no ambiguity about this. There is no way out, no way of saying, don't have to do anything about it yet, let's wait till the next world. From the time you are anointed king, probably when you are only a few months old, you are a king. So all of us are kings, every one of us who is baptized. Kings is what we are. The question is how to do that being. How do you be a king? And this is not a question about some remote future cosmos after the second coming. It is a question about the here and the now. Let's start in a classroom. The teacher asks, what is a king? The good child at the front says, a ruler. The good child is right. So then the teacher asks, what is a ruler? And the bad boy at the back says, something that draws straight lines. The bad boy is bad, but he is also right. Ruling in the sense of what a king does, and ruling in the sense of what you do when you lay a straight edge on the paper and run a pencil along it, are the same word. Ruling, reigning, regulation, regularity are all part of the same cluster of Latin words. And the answer is right not just because of the history of language, but because the first job of a king is to keep things straight, to keep them orderly. Royal order is the root from which all order comes. We are kings. Because we are kings, we need to learn what our kingship means. We have to learn how to do it. Having discovered that we are kings, we need to learn how to become good kings, or better kings than we already are. We start by looking at our Lord Jesus Christ, King of the universe, King of the apostles, Lord and Master of the apostles, and see what he does. Do you remember what he does on Maundy Thursday? He washes his disciples' feet. Now, pious sermonizers sometimes make this out to be an example of humility. It is not. It is an example of kingship, because kingship is a thing done not for the king, but for the king's subjects. If any king, any one of us, ever forgets that, Christ is there to remind him in the washing of the feet. Let's look at what happens in an actual earthly kingdom ruled by an actual king. Let's imagine a simple one. The first job of the king is to provide order within which his subjects can thrive. The king thus serves his subjects. The butcher only serves the people who live near enough to him to come and buy meat from him. The baker only serves whoever is less than about an hour's walk away. But the king serves every single person in the kingdom, from the highest to the lowest. The king brings order so that his subjects can go about their daily work in peace. The king brings justice so that if the butcher and the baker disagree, they can come to the king and he will resolve their disputes. The king rules over all, thus he serves all. Here is an example from the book of Genesis. One of the first commands God gave to mankind was when he made us kings over the whole of creation, to be masters of the sea, the birds of heaven, and all the animals. To be masters, therefore to be kings. To rule, therefore to serve the living world. We are not like pagans who tremblingly make sacrifices to placate the weather gods and the gods of the environment. We are kings of the natural world, and therefore we rule as a good king rules, because to care for the world is to act as its king. The first principle of Christian kingship defines who is a king. The answer is that each of us, because of our baptism, is a king. A few are kings over kingdoms. Some are kings over schools or businesses or religious communities. St. Alfonso Rodriguez was king of the door of the Jesuit college on Mallorca for 46 years, locking and unlocking, opening and keeping closed. If I am a child, I may be king over nothing more than my room. When my parents say, "Keep your room tidy," They mean the same thing as be the king of your room. Of course, you can see how it follows that many of us, most of us, end up being king of several realms at once. The second principle of Christian kingship defines what a king does. Whatever it is that I, as king, have authority over, whatever it is, big or small, I need to keep it ordered, keep it alive, keep it thriving. That is what kings are for, that is what ruling is for. To rule is to serve. I am the servant of my realm and everything that is in it. By ruling his door, the doorkeeper Alfonso served everyone who went in and out of that door. Let me digress just a little. It is good to remember that Alfonso even served the people he did not allow to come in. If thieves came and he did not let them in to steal, he was serving those thieves by saving them from doing evil. If you follow that scent far enough, it takes you towards a theology of the police. They serve us by protecting us from crime, but they protect all of us from it, not just some of us. They protect us poor civilians from having crimes committed against us, but they also serve criminals by protecting them from the evil of committing those crimes. This may sound far-fetched, but if you listen to the police, not the ones you see in films, not the ones politicians talk about in their speeches, but the real police talking among themselves, you will see that they are more aware of this than you might expect. Which is good, because it is true and it is important. Every king must be the servant of everyone in his realm. There can be no exceptions. The third principle of Christian kingship is that just as every king exists to serve, so everyone who serves is in some way a king. And this ties in immediately with the fourth principle, which concerns the duty of the king's subject to the king. I am recording a podcast here, not writing a textbook. Let me just say quickly then that a recurring memory of my childhood is hearing our mother's voice saying, "Children, come and pick up your toys so that Mrs. Tuitt can hoover the playroom." Unpack this for yourself. What it says to me is, all kings, all servants, they are the same people, really, are to be respected. In particular, we must respect them by keeping them free from distractions from whatever service they are performing. If a cleaner were just a cleaner, a thing, not a king, then it would, according to modern economic theory, be a lump of labour rented for so much an hour, as if one could treat time as a commodity to be bought and sold. If a cleaner is a lump of labour, then it is not he or she, but it. It is not a who, but a what. Deciding whether to pick up the toys for it would not be a matter of respect of people, but simply a calculation based on the time value of money. But cleaners are not cleaners, they are people. They are kings of the household, where cleaning is concerned, just as St. Alfonso Rodriguez was king of the Jesuit college on Majorca as far as its doorkeeping was concerned. With respect to their cleaning or their doorkeeping, we are in their realm. In that sense, we are their subjects, and our duty to these, our kings, is to respect them, respect their rule, which is their service, honour the service they do us by making it as possible and practicable as we can. Far from the playroom and out in the world, I am sure you know people who believe that anyone who is doing them a service is a thing, not a king, and treats them as things worth nothing more than the money that has been paid for them. But we, baptized to be kings, know what kings are, and we see kings everywhere, and we honour them for two things at once, for two sides of the same coin, their rule and their service. There is a lot more to be said about all this, and there is no time to say it here. If you absorb the notion of the kingship of everybody, and if you absorb the equation between "I am this king's subject" and "this king exists to serve me," then you won't need more words. For instance, you will instinctively know that if you receive any kind of bad service, it will be your duty not to complain as if it were some sort of punishment of the malefactor, but to complain in order to help a fellow king be a better king. Any Benedictines listening will recognize in a disguised form their duty of fraternal correction. And here's a final thing to carry away. Look at every organizational structure and turn it upside down so as to see it the right way. You do not have a parish priest set over you. You have him set under you to serve you. He, in turn, has set under him the bishop who serves him. And the proudest title of the Pope at the very bottom of the heap is Servant of the Servants of God. In this, the final week of Ordinary Time, you really ought to read all the readings at Mass every day, because they are all of them magnificent. The passages from the book of Daniel in particular deserve to be not read but proclaimed. The grand stories with Nebuchadnezzar, the lion's den, the writing on the wall, and then the vision of the Ancient of Days and the coming of the Son of Man. Where the week's feasts are concerned, we have the Vietnamese martyrs on Monday. There are some points of similarity with the Korean martyrs who were the foundation of the church there. The same imaginative savagery of all the ways in which they were killed, and also the total resoluteness of the Christians of those times, which makes our tepidity embarrassing. When 130,000 Christians were martyred, and the canonization in 1988 could list only a few of them, the ones whose sufferings were cruelest, the ones whose names were known, those few were already 117 people. That is definitely the kind of number where you find yourself almost weighing people rather than counting them, and anyway counting them rather than naming them. But these people are not 117, really. They are one and 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 one until you run out of breath. Each one of them is an individual created by God. To borrow the language from earlier in this podcast, each one of them is a king, not a thing. We can pray to one of them, or we can pray to them all. Vietnam will come up again early next year in a quite different story and rather an exciting one, so watch this space. On Tuesday the 25th, there's a saint you won't have heard about. I think he is celebrated only in Denmark, Finland and Sweden. He is the Dane Niels Stensen, who was a doctor and a scientist in the 17th century. He was a deeply spiritual man who found in the end no nourishment in the Protestantism of his native country. He became a Catholic, and in the fullness of time he left science behind and became a priest and eventually a bishop. He is loved for his pastoral zeal, his deep spirituality, and his love for poverty and the poor, but also as an example of the cohesion of natural science and religious knowledge. For all the nonsense that people talk about the conflict of science and religion, understanding science properly leads you straight towards belief in God. On Thursday the 27th, we are in another remote place, because the church is everywhere. In Goa, halfway down the west coast of India, there is a miraculous cross which has been known since at least the year 1619. It is kept in the cathedral at Goa, where 3 masses will be celebrated this Thursday to commemorate the miracle and honour the Redeemer of the world. That's all for this week. If you'd like to write to us about anything, send an email to universalis@universalis.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Have a good week in every sense, and let's pray for one another.